Let's take a look at the latest Gamble Rewards tank from Wargaming, the H3 175mm. Now this vehicle is tied to the soon-to-be ending Banners of Valor event, and this one is only obtainable from loot boxes, and this cannot be purchased directly. And with that being said, this vehicle is not worth it, so I would not recommend purchasing any of the war chest in an attempt to earn the vehicle. Now this is a vehicle that is difficult to play, and it could definitely use a few buffs to make it worthwhile or more balanced. And with that, let's go ahead and take a quick look at some of the characteristics. The gun of this vehicle is what makes it unique, mainly in that it does have a very long interclip reload of 8 seconds, and with a high alpha damage of 800 with 3 shells per clip. Now this does allow for good clip burst potential of 2400 damage in 16 seconds, but due to the very poor gun handling soft stats, this is difficult to achieve in practice. Now for a 175mm gun, the alpha is strangely low, along with the module damage being only 210. Now this will allow for some decent overmatches, but the penetration can feel lackluster against more sufficiently armored targets. Tying this in with an abysmally low DPM of 3064, you do feel like you have to work for the damage compared to many of the other vehicles in Era 2. And for the shells, both the standard AP and APCR are both going to be comparable, each of those having 370 and 396mm of penetration respectively. Now the engagement is going to impact which of these is going to be more effective, and this is due to the AP shells having 5 degrees of normalization and the APCR shells having 2 degrees. Against angled plates, the AP shells will usually have better effective penetration due to the normalization, and this is also one of the only tanks in the game where the lower penning AP shell is going to have effective better penetration than the APCR round, and this is mainly due to most vehicles in the game with the premium APCR shells having considerably higher penetration, whereas in this case it's only 26mm. Now for the shell velocity of each, these are definitely going to be poor for Era 2, and this is especially where the APCR shells, even though they have a little bit less effective penetration for those medium and long range engagements, these are still going to be very effective as the AP shells will struggle at times. Now taking a look at some of the gun soft stats for the hold movement and hold traverse values, both are going to be 0.27 and 0.27, with the turret traverse coming in at 0.18.4. Now this does make the vehicle effectively the second worst in all of Cold War for gun soft stats, this one only being behind the FV4005 in Era 1. Now the base accuracy of 0.33 and its aim time of 2.3 are acceptable, but due to those soft stats, those are going to be a detriment with the gun performance. Now it does at least have 8 degrees of gun depression, so there is some flexibility there, so not going to be any cons in that regard. Now just looking quickly for mobility, it does top out at not that great at 50.4 kilometers, so definitely sluggish for Era 2. It does at least have decent horsepower to weight, power to weight ratio of 18.49 horsepower per ton, but the top speed will mainly be the hindering factor, and when you need to relocate at times, that could be where you might be in a bit of a jam, especially with Era 2 having quite a bit of light tanks for the meta currently. So in respect to the mobility, each mobility equipment piece will give somewhat of a benefit, but it's not necessarily going to be major. This vehicle is not able to run either gun rammer or vertical stabilizer, so there's only so much variance you can really do for an effective loadout. And with that in mind, let's take a look at the vehicle loadout. Now starting right off with the equipment, what I do have on my build currently, which I do find the most effective after just a little bit of testing on a couple different variations, I do have improved ventilation, mainly because the soft stats are so poor, and the main hindrance of the vehicle is the blooming dispersion needed to place the shots more precisely. Vents, I'm going to say, is a must. I do also have turbocharger on to get a little bit more out of the power weight and not too much more of the top speed, but it tends to be at least one of the benefit. Even though the aim time is only 2.3, because this is the main hindrance of the vehicle, normally it would not be as effective to run the gun lane drive when aim time is decent. You're not going to get much mitigation there, but due to this being kind of the main bane of the vehicle, I do have us on trying to get that down just as much as possible. Now I do also run Spaliner. Currently, Spaliner for a couple years on does not actually it doesn't give you any direct benefits when it comes to ramming. In some instances you will take a little bit more damage, but from testing about a year or two ago, this does not actually give a benefit, so I don't run Spawner at all for the ramming, but mainly it's for the crew survival rate, getting an extra 15%, whether that's by percentage with saving throw or by HP per module kind of calculations. I'm not sure on that, but it does seem to be effective as I have done this on other builds. And this is mainly for running both food and the patch kit consumable, as patch kit is kind of the Cold War meta now. But food, just to get that little extra boost to the performance with the crew and the gun handling dispersion stats. Trying food on and off in comparison with, say, smoke, I did find food to be much more effective. Now for the consumables, I do have the enhanced repair kit along with food rations and then the enhanced toll patch kit. Now for the shell loadout, I do carry 12 AP shells and 18 APCR shells. So again, depending on the spawn in the map and where I'm going to maybe take the vehicle, that's going to depend which of these I'm going to load out first. So I do carry a little bit more APCR than AP. You could do maybe a 50-50. I do not even carry the HE, mainly just due to the gun handling being so poor for the vehicle. Now for the commander perks and skills, I do run Born Leader, and again that's just kind of a standard for pretty much every vehicle you're going to have in Cold War. I also have on off-road driving to mitigate the soft stats down, as those are not great, so you're going to get some benefit there, especially running food and vents on the vehicle. Absolutely you're going to want to, for a must-run snapshot and running gun. Also, I run armor angling as it's easy to fit in. I do run fire safety training, as a vehicle does have a high catch chance of 20% with a decently large module in the rear. So this one you'll do feel does catch a bit catches a bit higher than a lot of other vehicles, especially being flanked. So this is definitely a high recommended perk I would run. Also run supply conservation for the patch kit cooldown being reduced, and then also food. Mainly I'll run the food actively when dumping a clip to try to get a little bit better of performance on the gun stats, and you will definitely notice that in game. And because I am running the patch kit along with food and I do not have a med kit, I do run Jack of all trades so the commander can fill a knocked out crew member's role and reduce that penalty by 50%, which is very massive in that regard. And then also pain tolerance to further reduce the crew members from having a chance of being knocked out, as if they do get knocked out, you are going to notice, especially if it's the gunner, the dispersion will be quite a bit worse. And just to take a quick look at the armor, the vehicle is by no means a paper vehicle or like a paper Tedious. This is not just an auto pen tank for like auto cannons, although if they do get your side or rear, they definitely will. But frontally, or if you're slightly angled, this is actually decently armored, and you can bounce a somewhat surprising amount of shots, but you're by no means like a frontline brawler. So just looking at the highest armored part on the front plate, you do have a 317mm plate. This is also a fairly heavy vehicle, so this is actually quite an effective rammer, but you're not all that mobile. You don't top out all that well, so in some cases when you can get a ram off, it'll help, but running the perk due to the other necessities of the vehicle, I tried that at one point, found it wasn't really effective, so I wouldn't recommend it there. But in the opportunities where you do get to rammer, you need to, it's pretty good there in that area. And just kind of looking, going from the top down, the turret does have some decent armor thickness on the front, but not quite enough to where you're going to be able to side scoop or really hold on. For most heavies, mediums, not so much autocannons, they're not going to have too much difficulty penning you there, but at least for some of the high DPS burst autocannon tanks and a lot of areas on the front, you're going to be able to hunker down a lot more effectively against them. It does have a lower plate of 203mm, so decently angled, so you can get some bounces there, but due to the side armor of the vehicle not being all that armored, just kind of going through it real quick here, and then the upper plate there being 127, definitely an auto bounce angle, but a lot of other spots like on a turret though, where you're usually going to get penned anything 400mm and up very effectively. But going back with the side armor being 63mm, you can side scrape a bit, which I'll do at times. This is kind of more of like best played vehicle as like a second line brawler. Not so much playing at distance because of the gun being so derpy, but you are able to side scrape a little bit to mitigate what you are exposing, but in some cases it might just be able to pull the corner at the front, so just something to kind of keep in mind, just how you might pull out an approach. I do have 2 replays for the vehicle which are pretty good, so keep in mind this is going to make the vehicle look pretty good on its own, but overall it's definitely lackluster. So just to kind of reiterate again, I don't think it's worth it in its current state, and I would absolutely not recommend buying any of the war chests trying to gamble to get it. So we'll kind of wrap here and let the replays play.
On to victory! vehicle is out of play. Mission accomplished!